3 championships for Acosta. Not only that, but it was done in a hat trick, back to back to back. The seasons have turned over and we wipe the slate clean once more. New rubber has been put on the cars, drivers have had to readjust, and we're set for what might end up being one of the most unpredictable seasons yet. Well, let's see what it all holds in store for us as we get ready to watch round 1 of the PRL GTE Sportscar Series. And you'll see it all live here on the global SimRacing channel and the iRacing eSports network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Ossian Puhaka. Behind the scenes is our director, Jay Kennedy, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Sebring plays host to our first round here in spring, and it's a track that plays no favorites as well as bites hard when you least expect it. To find out a little bit more about it, why don't we head on down to our track guide? Welcome to Sebring International Raceway. Home to the 12 Hours of Sebring, one of the most grueling tests in endurance racing, this is a track which has earned a fearsome reputation among drivers. The circuit itself is located on the southeastern edge of the city of Sebring, Florida, and was built out of Hendricks Army Airfield shortly after World War II. 3 layouts are currently in use, ranging from 1.7 to 3.7 miles in length. The longest course, which is perhaps the most well-known with it being the one used for the famed endurance race, shockingly still contains portions of the original airfield surface. It's this aspect which has become a signature feature of the track, making it extremely bumpy for racing. Sunset Bend in particular nearly shakes cars apart while they attempt to navigate the high-speed 180-degree corner. As you'd expect for the side of an airfield, there's nearly no elevation change over the course of a lap, but many of the curves are dramatically tall and unforgiving, daring drivers to glance them yet not hit them directly. Thankfully, places to pass are plentiful, including spots like the Hairpin and Cunningham. However, the many fast, sweeping turns creates a dilemma for car setup, since a vehicle that's made too stiff could wind up bottoming out on the onerous bumps. In the end, if you have the wherewithal to withstand the track's rough nature, you're likely to fare well. And since Florida fans almost always show up in huge numbers to witness this test of car and driver, you'll have plenty to impress at this legendary North American road course. There you see some of the various views around here, but Ossian, this is going to be an interesting track for these drivers to tackle. It's extremely bumpy, and well, as I said, it certainly doesn't seem to let anybody off the hook if they make a mistake.
From turn 1, which I like to call the sunrise, all the way to the sunset bend, Sebring International Raceway is living proof of the fact that you don't need altitude changes to have a magnificent race circuit. It is certainly one of my favorite. It features the hardest corner in the entire American continent, which is of course the Sunset Bend. It is always a challenge for these drivers, and I'll tell you what, even if you hate it, the silver lining is it'll get rid of your kidney stones real quick.
Yeah, it certainly will rattle your bones around here. But as always, today's race is brought to you by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring organizations, companies, manufacturers, teams, and drivers together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. They're also bridging virtual and real motorsports by providing a network between these two, involving sim racers, real drivers, teams, managers, engineers, and of course, motorsport fans alike. You can find out more about how you can get involved at SIMMSA.net. Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products provide an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. The winner of Division 1 here in the PRL GTE Sports Car Series will get a ButtKicker Game or 2 or a simulation kit. Also, both drivers of the winning team and the team's championship will get a free t-shirt. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. Now let's take a glance at the championship from last season and how it wound up. I already mentioned that Abner Acosta took the victory when all was said and done, and he had it by a whopping 40-plus points over Christian Eisler. In fact, we are expecting Modov to be the main player, but by the end of the season, he had fell by the wayside and didn't even finish within the top 5. Munoz, Fredes, Pisano, and Anthony Pisano round out the top five of those drivers. We also have a teams championship. And Ozzy, how'd that wind up?
Well, it is the Punto CL Racing Blue, providing much faster than the perhaps real life counterpart of what we know, at least in Europe, as a Punto. RSR eSport finishing in second place, and GDR SimSport rounding out your podium. And I must say, Punto CL Racing Blue, as it was in the Drivers' Championship, in the Teams' Championship, their gap was 113 points to the second place. So I tell you what, that's some awesome display of driving skill. But let's see if they can bring it back to back this season.
And of course, we might have viewers who are tuning in for the first time. Well, it's a good place to do so with it being the first round. But just in case, here's some of the other race details that we've got in store to help familiarize you. And now, for those who are familiar with this series and have watched before, most of this is going to seem pretty much the same. We have a 60-minute race here today, and they have four makes of cars. They have an open setup in this series, but you can expect one pit stop for fuel. The big difference now is that they have a penalty, a stop and go penalty for incidents before you hit that disqualification. And they also have what they call an orange zone at the start of the race where drivers are given more severe penalties potentially if they get into trouble with other drivers on that first lap through that orange zone. We'll go over that in a little bit. But basically, this is going to be some great GTE driving here today. They've got some bonus points in store for this first round with one drop week to save them if they have troubles throughout the season. The uh, qualifying is underway, but before we get to that, we want to remind you that you're watching this on the iRacing eSports Network. Make sure and subscribe to the channel. All you got to do that is scroll down below the video and you'll see a big red button that says subscribe. Click that. You won't miss a moment here on IESN. Up at the top, Modoff is back, and it looks like he's got the pace back as well. He may have been bested by Acosta last season, Ozzy, but it looks like he certainly has some competition with a lot of brand new faces this season.
He does. He does have a lot of competition, but he is providing a good start to the season, so to speak. You always want to get your season started on a high note, but this is quite something else. He is leading the qualifying with 156.4. The next driver, Jesse T. Stevens, 156.7. So that is quite a margin indeed. I'm quite curious to see what couple of these names who were mighty fast in practice can do. I'm looking at the practice times, and car was 157.1 there. I don't know how many sandbags he's got strapped in his car, but he's got a lot faster in qualifying. In practice, it was Jesse T. Stevens, Rodrigo Mies, and Stephen Ash who were the top three, and they are right now sitting in positions 2, 5, and 10, respectively.
So as they continue around, you can see Stevens trying to collect those 3/10 quicker, but kind of backing it up, getting himself some clear track in the process. Now, I mentioned that orange zone. That goes here from the start line naturally all the way up to the hairpin. So quite a ways of the lap. Drivers are going to have to kind of tiptoe a little bit, make sure and be careful. We had a few times last season where the first lap took some of the leaders out, unfortunately. Very aggressive up at the front of this series with some of the drivers, certainly. And it seems like they are going to have to be at least a bit aggressive to try and take victories. Wilson and Stevens still separated by less than a tenth between them. You were eyeing Rodrigo Mises, though, a new face here in that number 88. Apparently gets to drive in real life competitively, it sounds like.
Yes, he's from Chile and drives for Punto CL Racing, so the defending championship team. Not sure if he drives for the red or the blue brand here, but still, I mean, I trust the red brand. That's why we're doing this broadcast, and I like his talent so far too. He drives in some time attack competitions in Chile, and he apparently, according to his own words, has the fastest Nissan Tida in Chile.
They see him circulating around. He's got about half a second, just over half a second to make up to Modoff. Interesting thing about Modoff being here is we do not have Abner Acosta returning. So even though Abner has one more championship than him, Carl could find himself getting back up to that three championship mark that we have for Abner Acosta. So Christopher Pfeffer coming back and certainly has this car under control because he's got within 3/10 of Modoff this last lap through, but he had a little bit of an off there, so he's going to continue on. Now let's talk about the new tires though, because that'll play here into qualifying as well, Aussie. It seems like we saw some of it last night with the Porsche Caymans, where they had to really get them up to speed. Is that kind of what we're seeing in the GTE cars as well?
Yeah, more so than previously, and it's gonna make first lap in the race especially interesting. You're gonna see these drivers. Previously in the GDE, you wanted to have a slow crawling out lap, and then you put in that one golden ticket lap right from the get-go. Now we're seeing even these top drivers in lap 4, lap number 5, improving their times. Trying to let maybe other drivers through in lap number 6. So we're seeing a different atmosphere out here today, and it's gonna allow you more chances. And more importantly, in an open qualifying, it's gonna make it much more predictable because there's nothing worse than someone doing 60 miles an hour in a 100 mile an hour apex right in front of you, and you're on a hot lap. That's a disastrous combination, and I'm glad these tires act a little bit more realistically now and a little bit more predictably. But it's gonna make the first lap a whole of an interesting affair, and that's why I'm actually kind of glad they got that long orange zone going because I'm afraid they're gonna need it.
Yeah, I kind of don't doubt that there's going to be at least a few issues. Now, there is no guarantees that you will be penalized if you run into problems in that orange zone. The stewards simply will take a look at it and you will be under tighter scrutiny through there. As Garrido's returned from last season after a short break, the 301 currently putting himself within the top 10, but typically he was up at the very front. He's only got one time lap down, so maybe this is him getting that speed up with less than a minute left to go. He's only got this lap and one more. Looks like that one did not count though, so he's going to have to go around one more time.
It's so difficult to come back after a break. I know that from personal experience, like being away for some time and you're anxious to get back, you have that newfound motivation. But it can also kill you inside if you're not back within where you used to be right from the get-go. Some people just want to have fun, and that's fine. Greetings to Finnish Counter-Strike Team ends, for example, for that one. But for me, it kills my motivation absolutely if I'm not right back where I used to be. And if you're used to these winning ways like he is, then, well, we're going to see how long it takes for him to get back to those winning ways. And what's going to happen if he's suddenly fighting for 10th place instead of the first place.
And Modov backs off on his final lap. We saw it on screen. Instead, we've switched over to the 15th place driver, Russo, who is coming out of Le Mans and onto the Ulman Straight. I see Christian Eisler ahead of him as well, and I think he might be on a hot lap. Let's switch those cameras over to the 727 because he's in sixth place, multi-time winner on this series before, never won a championship though. Can he go any quicker as he comes across the line? A
Yes.
56.9, and that is going to not improve his position though.
Yes, but it's an ice cold man from the Iceman. Ice cold lap from the Iceman, I should say, not an ice cold man, even though I don't doubt Christian Eisler's abilities. But, P number 6 in qualifying, getting under that 157 barrier, and even if it doesn't improve his position, it's gonna be a big mental barrier to go through because always when you see an even minute and you see only a handful of drivers getting under that even minute, you want Inter just because you're in the same second as them.
It's
I can't explain it.
Yeah, no, I totally get it as we watch Garrido, who does improve and get himself up to eighth with his last lap. So nice little notch on his belt for that one. Yeah, I'm the same way. That it's that mark, that thing that you want to be able to brag about, just getting yourself under that barrier. As we watch Romig, who comes around the final corner through Sunset Bend. The number 71 is in 18th position, his quickest at a 57.606. He comes down to this wide checkered line, but he does not improve, sadly.
And James LeBlanc, I was watching him behind. He was coming into Sunset Bend in that fluffy kitten ninjas car. Yeah, it actually says that on the back of the car. I did not make that up. And he actually spun on the last corner, took his Porsche around, and showing how difficult Sunset Bend can actually be to get right.
I'll be honest, that's one of my favorite team names of any of the series we've covered, and I think Cal
Top three
Quinn
for
might
me.
be our final. Yeah, there's been some good ones. The Window Lickers might be my number one. So that is it for our qualifying. Let's go through our starting order because we got a decent sized field to try and get through today. Carl Modoff manages to come back and put it on pole with Rodrigo Mises, who was quick in the warm up, up to second place here today. Jesse Stevens will be starting in third with Christopher Pfeffert, who is outside on row two. Then you've got Brandon Wilson starting in fifth and Christian Eisler in sixth position. Row four, it's Justin Rame on the inside with Diego Garrido starting in P8. Nicholas Rubilar starts ninth today. Zach Broderick will round out your top 10.
And just outside those guys, it'll be Anthony Pisano and Caleb John Lavender in row number 6 with Andres Espinoza and Stephen Ash in row number 7. P number 15, it is Rafael Russo, whose last lap we watched, and behind him is his almost brother, Michael M. Ross. Position number 17 is Luis Pime Jr., Sean Romick, 18th, Horacio Calguin, 19th, and Mac Miller rounding out your top 20.
Then we get to Ken Huber, who will start in 21st. Ignacio Fredes, a bit far down for him, if I'm honest, in 22nd position. Brett Thurman starts 23rd with David Duino in 24th. Jason Hodges is at the quarter century mark today with Elijah Mitchell starting in 26th. Jean-Marc Tremblay, P27 for him. James LeBlond in 28th and Sean Duhamel in 29th. Ted Lowendick will start 30th.
Jeff Carollo, 31st, James Hebb, 32nd, then it's Stacey Donegan and Dirk Oxas in the next row. Chase Steffi, David Peterson, 35th, 36th, Lawson Christie, 37th, Donald Olson, 38th, Kyle Strichard, 39th, and Bill Cross, 40th position for him. And interestingly, all times were under 2 minutes apart from the last two. So we really got a fast field out here today, and will be interesting to see, Joe, how they make it into that first corner. But first, they have that agonizingly slow outlap to get through, try to get some heat into those tires, and just dread the task that's coming ahead. Because here in the Florida heat, I'm glad we got AC in the commentary booth.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny that you mentioned the heat because I was just thinking it'd probably be a little bit quicker to get heat in the tires out there. It's actually 107 degrees Fahrenheit on the track surface. I've been alerted that's around 43, 44 degrees Celsius on
It
there.
is not,
So
it is
quite
42.
steamy. 42. Okay. So I was off once again. I guess 39 initially when we were having a debate, me and our director, Jay.
Ah.
So,
Well, I would have taught that to you because I have mine, of course, in civilized units,
yeah,
so I can see it directly.
civilizations like that. One of our old directors, Amjad, used to call them freedom units for what it's worth. So there we go. That's the C and that's the F there.
Yeah.
We've got a little bit of wind as well that the drivers are dealing with. Not too drastic, but clearly the big talking point is going to be that heat on the track. Interestingly, we only had one driver, Naus, the only one that didn't put a time in, but I don't see Zach Broderick, the number 14 car, out here. So I think we're only going to get 39 starters today. The good news is that this is a pretty long lap, so I don't think traffic should be too much of an issue around here.
No, no, and it's a track where you can quite easily find overtaking zones. It suits multi-class racing really well, and in a single class, there is not that much of a speed difference when you look at the field. You're seeing 3.5 seconds about from right from the get-go to the slowest guys in the field, and even Karl Mudov, I don't think he can keep that pace going all race long. So you can afford to be a little bit more careful instead of just sending it into the sunset bend like you see about 75% of drivers usually doing. I'm thinking these guys are a little bit more classy than that. And just one note, Joe. They are hyped up in the chat, in our chat, about Ford GTs, which is a wonderful car. And there was earlier a question: are there any Ford GTs in the field? And the answer is yes, there are. I can spy right away at least one, and that is Michael M. Ross. He will be starting from the 16th position in that 67 Ford GT, and I highly doubt he will be the only one either. So we see at least a couple of the Blue Oval racing here at Sebring.
Jay Steffi's the other one. He's at the 247, and I'm checking to see if there's any more. Sadly, it looks like they're not very popular this season. I say sadly because to me it's one of the prettiest cars. If it was a beauty contest out there, but as I think it was it Enzo Ferrari that said that cars are neither beautiful nor ugly. They just become beautiful when they win. So I guess
I think it
they've
was.
yeah, they've got their work cut out for them because if they are the prettiest, they're going to have to really fight off a lot of other cars that are going to have an easier time winning this beauty contest as we now come to the final stages of the lap up to Jean Debienne. One thing I'm noticing as I'm looking at the track, though, is that it doesn't look like they swept the track between the practice, qualifying, or even up into the race here. There is a lot of marbles offline, so I'm wondering if drivers will be looking out for that.
They absolutely will be. You don't want to run into those marbles, and you're gonna see them after qualifying. You're gonna see them on the insides of the corners. So watch out for drivers locking up brakes when they try to overtake someone up on the inside. Watch out for drivers going off the line in Sunset Bend. There are more than one though, so that's a good thing. But if you go just a little bit wide in that corner, it's gonna make it that extra bit sketchy. And those tire barriers on the outside, they are just waiting and they are hungry. And so are we, Joe. We are hungry for some good racing, and we are just entering the main straight.
We are into Sunset Bend. The Porsche is going to give over control to Karl Modoff. He's going to try and take his third championship this season, but what is the first round going to hold for him? Sebring isn't always happy hunting grounds as the green flag comes out, and he gets a good jump off the line behind him in second. It looks like it's going to be Stevens, actually, as I think Pfeffer falling well back. In fact, he is all the way to, looks like, fifth place as they come up to the first corner. We already have an incident in the background. Two cars sliding off. Not sure who that was. We'll try and check it later.
Indeed, and behind them, it is some three wides going into first corner. And it was Bill Cross and Stephen Ush also from position number 13, as well as Anthony Pisano from
Oh,
P number 10, who
and
were off on the first corner.
Eisler
Oh,
spinning.
big mayhem! Big
Eisler
mayhem
has.
in the back.
I'm trying to pick it. Oh, and there, yeah, we can see we got a BMW off. This is just outside of turn 3 and 4. There's Eisler as well. He's spun on his own coming out of turn 5. So separate incidents in multiple places at the start of this race. Looks like those cold tires are quite tricky.
Yeah, we saw Eisler spinning off. We saw a couple of cars going wide and 10 behind them. We got a couple of guys who were just, taking a lot of damage, just trying to, chime it in. And Ken Huber and Horacio Calquin came together actually in turn number 2, and that caused a big spin. Just ran out of room between those two, and that caused a bit of mayhem. But thankfully, the front of the field is still intact and alright, and that means that at least some of them made it intact through those first couple of corners.
And still seeing everybody running is the good news. All 39 cars still out there. And then as soon as I say that, James LeBlond is slow, but it looks like he's got it going. Obviously had some sort of issue himself. Meanwhile, up at the front, Modoff getting ready to finish the first lap, and he's got about a half-second gap back to Jesse Stevens. Mises fell back to third at the start of the race, but he's holding on. In fact, the train at the front of the field is still relatively close. Nobody really falling back too badly at this point.
No, bad news for your 4GD fans, though. No damage. I'm gonna start it off with that one. But Michael Ambrose took a slowdown penalty heading into, coming out of Le Mans into the back straight, and he lost a lot of positions. So he was already on the edge of top 10. Now he's all the way back to 17th.
They work their way around. Oh, we got a car way wide on turn 1. Luis Payne Jr., who is falling down to 14th, 15th position, losing a lot of spots. He kept it out of the wall, but that had to be a scary moment going off into the dirt out of that very fast left-hander.
Yeah, especially these days with the new tires, how loose the car can get, how snappy it can get when you come back from the grass, when you come back from the dirt into the racing surface. He did a really good job of not spinning that in front of the field. He's now fighting with Elijah Mitchell. See if he can hold on to at least one position, taking a defensive line into the hairpin and breaking himself a little bit wide, but he's gonna get away with it. Now, an interesting thing, Joe, I would like to bring up. We saw a lot of incidents in the first lap. We saw a couple of cars going wide and so on and so forth. Thing is, we got a strict incident limit in this race. 13 incidents and you get a drive-through. It is a 1-hour race, and already some drivers taking 4 or 5 incidents in the first lap just by those car contacts.
Yeah, I have a feeling we might see some extra pit stops from drivers, unfortunately. We've been watching the battle for third place between Mies and Wilson as they get ready to come down the Ullman Straight. Looks like Mies has dropped off for a while. He was right on the gearbox of Stevens. And I'm not sure that he's got a good enough exit as they come down this long, long straight up to Sunset Bend. And indeed, he's certainly not got an opportunity coming up to the final corner.
No, 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 he doesn't. And we are still seeing a string of cars. English is hard. We're seeing a string of cars into that last corner and trying to get a good run onto the main straight once more. Interestingly, on the first lap, I saw something you don't usually see with the GTE cars. And on the first flying lap, some drivers were actually a little bit sideways exiting the corners, just a hair of a slide, even with the traction control. So we are definitely seeing the cars being more lively, and I'm gonna be really curious to see what happens in that battle for P number 6 now, because Justin Rehm, Nicolas Rubilar, and Diego Garrido are really close up together, and you see Nicolas and Diego are actually teammates. So let's see if one gets past Justin, will the other follow suit very quickly indeed.
On screen, what we were watching there for a moment was Fredes and Mac Miller in that fight. Now, looks like we've jumped over to what you were mentioning with Justin Ream here. And that Porsche certainly fighting hard with a train of cars behind him and taking a little bit of a peek. Rubilar thinks about it, but then thinks better of it here into Cunningham. It tightens up coming through Collier. And behind him, Garrido, still eager to try and make up position since he hasn't gained any from the start. He's still sitting in 8th.
I like that move into Cunningham from Nicolas, though. Rubilar just taking a little bit of a peek, and you saw how Justin was affected by it. Instinctively, he braked a little bit later, was a little bit intimidated, and as a result, his line into the next couple of corners was compromised. And a lot of these corner exits at Sebring, you need a certain line. Once again, you see Röhm making a little bit of a mistake, and Rubilar taking a good exit out on the back straight. Little bit compromised when he moved alongside, but he will still get a nice run. Justin trying to block him off, but Joe, I think Nicolas got it.
Oh, he's to the inside. It's not done yet, though. And Justin is braver on the brakes, maybe too brave. Back down the inside, but sliding out into him and comes across his bow. And
Look
the
at
driver
Diego.
taking advantage of both of them is Diego Garrido. He's going to get a 2-for-1 in a single corner.
Yeah, and they just file up behind him. Rubilar falling up behind him. Justin gonna trying to get back on the first corner, the so-called sunrise. Not quite able to make it. So it happened exactly as I expected. Two of these teammates getting through on one single sweep move. But I tell you what, that was hairy. There was contact on Sunset Bend, and when you say contact and Sunset Bend and battling for position, you're usually gonna see some very sad race cars on a tire barrier somewhere and a really sad driver right next to it. But this time they made it through intact somehow. What a great display of driving skill. Even if it was some unwarranted aggression early on in the race, but hey, he made it work, so can't fault him too much.
Yeah, I guess as long as it sticks and everybody comes away from it, especially considering Rubilar had his left rear bump or left rear fender touched there as he takes another look on Garrido, but then backs out of it. We've switched a little bit behind them. Now we're back on Garrido, seeing if he can get or if he can keep his teammate back. But Rubilar obviously not wanting to stay where he was, which was 7th place. He lost a position and gained a position. Now he's looking to gain one and keep it this time as they come up to Bishop.
I got nothing. Sorry.
It's okay. I'm kind of entranced by this fight as well. And especially knowing Garrido is known for being a little bit aggressive. Now, granted, I'd say that was a great move from him this time. So it seems like maybe he's learned his lesson from last season and has come back with a bit of a more clean mindset, but he's got to fight his teammate for it now.
Yeah, and meanwhile, back in P number 4, Brandon Wilson lost a second. He took a slowdown penalty at Le Mans corner, I believe. Had to really give it up on the main back straight, and as a result of that, he has lost a lot of time, Brandon Wilson has, and now he's being caught up by Christopher Pfeffer. And Christopher, well, he is looking to make his way closer and closer into that podium battle. The thing is, these guys are teammates in RSR eSport, who have been one of the top teams last few seasons. So, we're gonna have to see if Brandon's gonna let him go, if some team orders come into play, or whether Christopher is gonna be like, okay, well, I'll hang back behind you. You just took a slowdown, doesn't matter. Try and catch these guys up.
We saw on screen Espinoza coming back to the track. He had a bit of a spin. I think we're looking at the replay here. Yeah, this was into turn 3. Self-spin, so he didn't hit anybody. Nobody touched him. He certainly lost a number of positions here, as there it goes.
Yep. And further back on your field, just outside of the screens, Michael Ambrose getting past Sean Romig into P number 12 in that 4 GD. So a little bit of an update from there as well. And the racing is getting tighter and tighter on around those positions as well.
Yeah, there's plenty of cars, so there's all kinds of action for us to try and keep track of. If we don't get to your battle, or you're a fan of someone who's in a battle, our apologies. There's just so much to cover here throughout. So we watch Romig give chase here. Excuse me, no, we've switched up to, didn't quite see who that was, so apologies.
Well, what we should be watching right now is around the positions 10 and 11, Rafael Russo, Caleb John Lavender, because Rafael Russo last time by 157.8. Now, Rafael is on a real run here because he's actually catching that battle back up in the front. So we have to see if he can make up that difference and if Lavender can stick up behind him. And what can Michael Ambrose do right behind them? That's an interesting battle also at this point in the race. And why that's interesting, you look at the screen and you think, oh, well, they're just racing, they're back in P number 10. Why are we not focused on the battle groups back in front? Because this is usually where things start to happen at this point in a GT race. We are about 13, 14 minutes in. We're seeing a couple of packs start to form at this point. You see the leaders starting to get away into a long string. They're not going to be battling too much at this point in the race. But behind them, you see a couple of guys who are really, really, really trying to get it on at this point in time, trying to catch back up to the guys in front. And then behind them, you see those guys who think they are faster than others. You remember that first turn incident, second turn incident? Well, you see that second turn incident, you see a lot of those guys coming back to the field right now, and they are gonna be angry after losing such an amount of time. So you see starting positions, for example, you see drivers who started from 21st, 22nd, all the way to 14, 15. Then behind them, for example, 727, Christian Eisler is one guy who is damaged and well in the back. He started in the 6th position. And imagine what happens when a guy who starts, for example, in 6th position is down in P number 30, P number 35. Well, even if his car is damaged, he's gonna be on a different level than those guys.
As we head back to the battle for 4th place, Wilson and Pfeffer still close to one another. We saw earlier that Wilson lost time, and Pfeffer has not dropped off of him quite yet, been applying a fair bit of pressure. They're also being caught, it seems, Aussie, as they've got Garrido and Rubilar, who've dropped Rame that they passed a little bit earlier, and have cut this down to, it looks like about half a second at this point.
Yeah, and that's very interesting. Last time by 157.1 for Diego and 157.6 for Pfeffer. So that's very interesting. At some point, Christopher's gonna have to say, look, Brandon, I'm faster than you. I have to get by, because Brandon's not doing the lap times he needs to do. He's lower. He's actually, I think, the slowest car in the top 10 right now.
He's right on top of them as they come out of Big Bend. This is one of the more popular places for a pass here into the hairpin. He's not really happy with it, though. He does not even poke his nose in, and this is going to allow Garrido to close in yet more. In fact, I'd say he's got a whiff of a pass if he does try to attempt something now. So if anything, Christopher is almost have to be on his rear guard as well as go on the attack.
Yeah, he's gonna have to be a rear gunner right now. He knows that if he goes for a late move into one of the hairpins, or if he goes into a move that they will both lose time in, Diego's gonna be past them in an instant. And he probably saw already, well, not in his mirrors, maybe heard Diego and Nicolas getting past poor Justin Rem earlier on. Well, he's gonna be the next target. They're gonna be the next target, and already Diego right behind them, hounding them down, looking for that overtaking opportunity. Garrido, not known exactly as a, one of the most cool-headed drivers out there. He will go for the pass if he sees an opportunity, and right now he is looking for that opportunity left, right, and center. So here on, it's getting tougher and tougher at lap number 7.
He's already been getting some mistakes out of Chris. He had two wheels off coming out of tower and almost gets into him. He does get
No,
into him.
no,
Chris has
no,
turned. His
no.
teammate is going to get through even, and Rubelar moves himself up to fifth. Greedo stays in P6. Christopher Pfeffer tries to get the car going.
Come on, Diego. You know you're better than brakes. You don't need to do that. I mean, just silly. I'm sorry, but it's a silly mistake. He came way too fast into the corner. He saw the guy in front. He knew that Porsche is forced off in the brakes. He saw it all the way through. The whole lap, he was catching him on the brakes each and every time. Why would he dive it to the inside when there is no indication that the guy in front is just gonna leap out of the way? I'm sorry, but that's a silly incident from Diego, and I'm sad to see that because it was going to be such a great battle, and now he just poked one of the guys out and had to let his teammate through once again. And next up there, right in the back of Brandon, and I think Brandon's gonna have to be extra careful with his mirrors after seeing that one.
For some reason, Chris then came to a halt on the front stretch and took a tow. I'm not sure if maybe he got suspension damage out of that. You can see he's already in pit lane waiting for that tow to finish. Rubelar's already been caught by Garrido, so the battle continues, and I'm with you. If I was Nick, I would be just a little bit edgy about Diego being behind me right now. Let's see if Diego is that eager to dispose of his teammate to get into the top 5. Certainly, they're not far behind the next car up. Wilson is still there, so there's a chance to get up to 4th even if he overtakes his teammate.
Indeed, and we'll see if Nicolas can keep it a little bit more calm than Diego has been. Diego's still pretty much pounding it on, but you can see in his driving style how aggressive he's being, how late to the brakes he's being, even behind his teammate. And right now he's starting to feel the effects of that. He's losing front end grip. You can see him just sliding a little bit wide of those apexes, and that's the first sign of usually something starting to go wrong with his cars. You're gonna start to lose time. So maybe these calmer guys, Justin Rem, maybe even Rafael Russo, can catch back up to him in the later portion of this race.
Take a glance back here between Lavender and Russo. Caleb doing what he can to try and overtake the 22, staying right in those tire tracks down the front stretch. Not nearly close enough to attack here into turn 1. They're going to be joined by Ross potentially. He's only about a second behind them. Lavender tries to go side by side, which he does take a poke this time into turn 3. He could find himself joined very quickly, and just in that one moment, a 10th is lost through these sequence of corners. They're going to pick up speed once again. It's down to 0.7 of a second, so 0.3 in just the first third of this lap.
Yeah, and Caleb John Lavender, he is driving a GTR simulator sponsored car. They also, a little bit of a mention by them, they also organize, for example, 24-hour sim racing events and 24-hour sim racing league. So they got a lot of experience from sim racing, have been organizing events in Denmark, and a big group, and glad to see them here on iRacing too, being a big name and their brand being displayed on Caleb's car. And let's see if Caleb can make them proud by taking that position from Russo.
Let's keep the cameras on this, but an update for those wondering. Modoff is still our leader, and he's got about 3 seconds back to John Stevens. John's not been able to really keep him under wraps and is slowly dropping back. It's not huge margins, but obviously he does have reason to be concerned. So this trio being led by Russo, who is deep into Jean Debienne. This opens the door for Lavender. He's going to put his foot through and over the threshold, and he's going to force him wide. That's going to be 2 positions gone because Ross is immediately through.
Yeah, he got a little bit awry on the brakes. You can see him just going a little bit sideways on the braking at Le Mans, trying to get it turned into that little bit of a ridge inside of that curb. When you can take that curb, you're gonna win a lot of time. But he got a little bit sideways, got on the marbles, and then in the next corner, his tires were just overheated. You can see him trying to brake. Not gonna happen. He got a little bit wide, got on the marbles, had to let go of the throttle to not run into the grass, and lost 2 positions. But he made the best out of a bad situation there because he didn't go onto the grass, he didn't get damaged, and he's still in that battle pack. But right now, Michael M. Ross all the way up to P number 9 after starting 16th, and despite having that slowdown on the first lap, the Ford GTE is going strong.
Yep, this car is looking prettier by the moment, I'd say, and He's actually looking pretty good for trying to get by Lavender as well, as he has a good exit out of turn 5. We got a car on the wall. Stacy Dunnigan, it seems, who has lost it in turn 1. Let's see if we can get a replay on this one. And I think he caught the inside first, it looks like.
Yeah, he took a weird line in the first corner. He was side by side with Jason Hodgson. That's by the Radicals driver, Jason. And he was trying to break a little bit later, get that tight inside line. He just didn't see the inside wall. And that looks like the silliest mistake you can make. But I tell you what, Joe, that's really easy to do. You're not usually looking at that. You're already looking at the exit at that point in the corner when you're in the apex. Your eyes are so far ahead that you're looking at the exit and you don't maybe realize that, oh, I'm in a more shallow line and I should be careful of that inside wall that pokes out. And well, it took another victim at Sebring.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I consider that a blind corner just because that wall there. You're kind of hoping you've got the arc right, and you have to make last minute adjustments, which is never good in a bumpy corner like that. As we've jumped back to the battle for 8th place, Lavender with a great exit off of Lamar. Michael Ross in that Ford GT falls back slightly. Russo, who we saw lose these 2 positions just moments ago, is starting to gain back up on the Ford and is quite strong through Sunset Bend.
He is strong through Sunset Bend and he's looking to make some great exits out of that one. Another battle, P number 15, 16, 17. 15, 16, they swapped positions already once this lap. David Duino getting up ahead of Mac Miller, but Miller's looking to come back and we'll see which one of these which is going to come out stronger, the BMW or the Porsche, an eternal battle between the German brands. So that's something to watch out for. Also, they got the damaged car of Ken Huber ahead of him. And look at the back end, the left rear of Ken Huber's car. And imagine him still doing 58s with that car. He's having great pace out here today.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing that Ferrari is going as quick as it is. You can see that fender all sorts of bent up. No movement behind them as Duino is able to hold Miller back. They're also joined by Payne, the number 17, appropriately in 17th, coming back from his spin very early in the race. Nothing doing down into Cunningham for the time being.
A lot of great battles here going on. We see that battle all the way through. You see Duino, Miller, Paim, and well, Tremblay is not close enough, but we got a 3-car battle for that position ahead of them. No need to change the picture there yet, but I'm just going to mention Espinosa and Fredes are really close for 12th, and then we still have that 8th place battle going on as well. And I'm going to just look, and second and third as well actually battling it out. So that's going to be very interesting. Jesse T. Stevens being caught by Rodrigo Mies, the Chilean racing driver, the time attack driver. Let's see if he can put up some time attack laps. I tell you what, he's trying his best. Last time by, he was the fastest of the field. This time by, losing a couple of tenths to race leader Carl Modov, but still a couple of tenths faster than Jesse T. Stevens. And this is going to be a really good battle. I'm excited to see how Rodrigo battles here.
Wonder if we could pull up a lap comparison, because I'm pretty sure that Mies was farther back than this not too long ago. Stevens now under pressure with about half a second between the 36 and the 88. They come out of turn 5. As Jesse's starting to respond slightly. It was closer than this back at the end of the previous lap, about 3 tenths between them. And there you see the comparison. Looks like Mises was slower and 2 of the laps, and then the 3 most recent ones, he has just turned on the afterburners.
Yeah, this is where the race starts to come alive for him. This is where he realizes, okay, I'm gonna cash in the effects of being a little bit calmer earlier on. Despite being a time attack driver, he knows how to, keep those tires cool, keep that car going consistent. Jesse clearly having troubles with his tires. You can see him out of Cunningham sideways a little bit, and when you come through the tower, he's able to get the power decently down, but all the time, Rodrigo's looming closer in the Porsche in his mirrors. We'll have to see how they go through Le Mans. This is usually the first time when you notice those tires starting to go. The right, left, right, agonizing for this rubber and agonizing for the driver. If you get it an inch wrong, you will lose half a second, potentially a second, and you get a bad exit out of the back straight. And look at this here. Jesse having to already take a defensive line, trying to perhaps break the draft a little bit, make sure Rodrigo doesn't do anything silly up into Sunset Bend. But I'm gonna think he's gonna keep it calm. It's gonna be a real doozy for next couple of laps. But I'm predicting lap 14, we're gonna see an overtake from Rodrigo, and it's gonna be coming out of Cunningham Bend. He's gonna get a good line after a fake, and then he's gonna get the position by Tower.
Interestingly, that was Steven's quickest lap of the race so far, and Mies was only a little less than a tenth off of him. That's why you saw him get right back up there as they come down through 3, 4, and 5. Maybe we could see Rodrigo get himself a launch, have an attack down into turn 7 into the hairpin. Doesn't quite look good to me, though. He's actually dropping back. That looked like a poor exit.
Yeah, it was an okay exit, but you can see the advantage of the BMW over the curves when you look at them, especially in those 2, 3, and 4. He can take the curves so much more aggressively. You can see Rodrigo actually going around the curves a little bit more, whereas Jesse was able to ride those curves, gain a little bit of time. You can see it in the early part of the track, but not so much with his. Look at again here on Cunningham. He was taking the curb really aggressively, and I'm wondering if he can even take the inside curb at Tower. I don't think he can. But here, once again, we see him running a little bit wider. He's losing a little bit of time in these fast corners. So we'll have to wait and see when Rodrigo is going to get the opportunity. I'm still backing on next lap. He's just so fast through Cunningham.
It certainly looks like he could set something up if the right situation presents itself. But Mies is a new equation in this series. This is his first time competing in the PRL GTE Sportscar series. Woody's looking very close here. Oh, this is very good for Rodrigo. He is barely 4/10 back, and he's got the slipstream. Now make it 3/10 back as they start to pick up speed, 150 miles an hour, 160 miles an hour by the time they reach the end of the straight. He's not going to send it in here into sunset. The sun, interestingly, going behind some clouds throughout much of the course this lap. We've been seeing quite a bit of shade, and the temperature's gone down slightly. It's 104 degrees Fahrenheit before they come back into it. And
Yeah,
no attempt here as we take a look back at 6th and 7th as well.
yeah, Justin Ram and Diego Garrido. Diego, as I predicted earlier on, and as we predicted earlier on, he's starting to lose time now. Last time by 158.6, so those tires are still going. He had a little bit of a better run earlier on after the initial couple of mistakes, but right now he's really starting to lose time. And Justin Ram, well, he remembers those overtakes. He remembers those guys being very aggressive with him on the last corner. Do you think it's payback time for Justin?
I wonder. We'll have to see because as he comes up into the hairpin, he's actually much tighter down to the apex than Garrido is, and that allows him to get even closer behind that rear wing. And I think, did we have a change of position behind them between Ross and Lavender?
Yes, we had Michael and Ross going past Sean Lavender, and we're gonna get a replay of that on your screens. So
Yeah, that was down into the hairpin, and it was just Lavender, unfortunately, outbreaking himself out into the marbles. And there you can see he slips on through.
yeah, you can't make an overtake really much easier than that, in a sense, or make it look easier than that at least. Slipping through, nice and easy, getting by. Meanwhile, I have to admit, oh, Rodrigo Mies and Jesse Stevens, they are getting very close on the back straight for that P number 2. So I was wrong about Cunningham, I was just about to say. But right now, Rodrigo running right back up to Jesse. But look at Jesse being so much faster on Sunset Bend. Rodrigo's having some sort of trouble there. Already last time by, I was noticing it. He was taking a strange line, like a really almost trying to avoid the inside wall for some reason. And again, he's losing almost half a second in the last corner. So I wonder what's up with that for Rodrigo.
It almost looked like on my screen that he lifted a little bit before the corner. I wonder maybe he's thinking fuel saving, potentially? Using the
Maybe, I mean,
slipstream.
that
It's
could
it,
be.
it it's actually well into the pit window at this point. In fact, we're just about halfway, so we have had one scheduled stop, I believe. Two of them, it looks like, is Lowendick and Oxus have both come in and taken their scheduled fuel.
Yeah, those guys have been already come down the pit lane, and well, you know that 1 hour race, none of these guys are gonna change tires unless you're absolutely positively out of it and just gunning for that fastest lap of the race. Otherwise, they're not gonna change tires, at least not by strategy. So the later you make your pit stop, the better it is for you, and the more you're able to save fuel in battles like these that we're seeing all over the track. Maybe he's thinking, maybe Rodrigo's already thinking ahead. Maybe he's like, okay, well, Carl is too far ahead unless he makes a mistake. The guy behind Brandon Wilson, he's too far back. So I'm just gonna hang behind Jesse, pit 1 lap later than him, going for the overcut. And then with a quicker pit stop, I'm gonna get past him without having to resort to battling, without having to risk it all. And that is really clever driving. And that is really the GT meta almost these days. You're gonna see a lot of GT drivers do that. It's so much easier to get by that way than having to resort to a battle, and it's also faster in your overall race strat. Unfortunately, it is, of course, not the preferred way when it comes to spectators and commentators, because we like to see good battles, believe it or not. But
And
then again, drivers don't really care how entertaining they make it feel.
and in the background, you could see Russo losing out to Romig coming off of Le Mans. He just went a little wide there, and Romig took advantage of it. Now, ahead of them, we were watching Ross and Lavender. Lavender trying to get that position back so far, not successfully. Oh, and is Huber going down the order? What happened to Ken Huber here?
Oh, I'm gonna have to wait and see what happened to him. He came into the pit lane. Yeah, he come into the pits on lap number 15. Actually, he was right in a battle back. Mac Miller, Lewis Pime Jr. He lost a couple of positions already before that, heading into the back straight. And with the damaged car, he's not gonna battle them on the straight line very much. So he took it to the pit lane. Gonna get some fuel in, maybe a little bit of repair. Let's see if they can slap some bear bond onto the back of that car and get him back going.
Meanwhile, as we continue to watch, oh, and looks like Russo and
Yeah,
unfortunately Romig get into one another into the hairpin, both
yeah,
getting going, but not before losing positions.
yeah. Russo just send it up to the inside of the hairpin. I talked about those marbles on the inside of the track. Well, there were some. He was way too late on the brakes, but the thing is, good thing is, Romik saw him actually coming. Romik saw him and was like, okay, well, you're not gonna ever make the corner, so I'm just gonna give you room, try to get the cut back on the exit, a better exit. Unfortunately, Rafael Russo, once he tried to turn it in, that whole 4-ton weight, and I'm talking kilos here, of that BMW got around on him, and then he just spun in front, and then, well, what Romik had in front of him was an immovable object. The absolute unit of BMW M8 just going, well, I just spun. But thankfully, Romik's car, miraculously, I should say, looks quite unharmed, and Espinosa still staying behind him.
You could see that was a great fight on screen through Collier and Tower. Romig came out in front of Espinoza. Fredes has caught up to them because of all that tussling and a little wide coming through Sunset, maybe looking to cut back. Yes, indeed. And look at that. Oh, and both of them coming in. Espinoza and Romig duck in as Fredes decides to stay out.
Yeah, interesting strategy there. And I'm not talking about in a passive aggressive sense. Espinosa and Romic decided to both pit at this time, so we'll see who has saved more fuel, who can dare to be more accurate on their calculations. And we're back to the second position.
Yeah, Stevens still fending off Mies. In fact, his hopes of trying to chase down Modov seem to be continually slipping away because it's 6 seconds from him up to our leader. Mies still hasn't gotten by, which kind of makes me think that my thought about fuel might be what's going on here. Just trying to save time in the pits. We
Yeah,
look
and we've
once
seen the
again. Oh,
battle
and
coming out of the pits as well.
yeah,
These guys trying to get ahead. It's Romig getting ahead. Espinosa actually also behind Mac Miller right now. Mac Miller also got just ahead of him out of the pit lane, and they were side by side when they came out. So that's actually gonna be -1 for Espinosa. But he's gonna try and get past Mac Miller as soon as possible so he can get battling back with Sean Romig. But this time it is the Porsche team who had managed to save up a little bit more fuel, and
oh,
as
look
a
at
result of
Russo
that,
here.
get themselves that position.
Whoa! And Espinoza is very deep on the brakes, gets to the inside of Mac Miller. I thought it was Russo who was going to be making the move. He's going to try and take advantage of it, though, with Miller shoved to the outside. He's got a nose in, but can he keep it there by the time they break for Cunningham? No, he is falling back slightly.
Oh,
Oh, he's
Russo.
going to send it in deep, though. Very late on the brakes, and he's given space at the apex, just barely. Can't gun it off the corner. And there goes Miller back by him once again as Huber tries to sneak through in the melee. Doesn't quite work out for him as he gets cut off.
They're going full send on the full send car here, Joe. Both Andres Espinosa and Rafael Russo trying to call up Mac Miller on his bluff of having that team named Full Send Racing. Well, they're gonna show what that means. Lavender in the pit lane in meanwhile. So Caleb John Lavender pitting from P number 9, and he's gonna potentially join that battle as well.
And Modoff, who's been in and out there, you see him on your screen, returning to the circuit. So he is naturally our highest pitter at this point, and he came out into clear air. There is no one in front of him.
Yeah, very good for Karl Modov, looking like he's gonna, just cruise into a victory here. And meanwhile, oh, I was just about to say Mac Miller, Rafael Russo still getting very close, but Rafael Russo made a tiny mistake in that last corner. When you get a full fuel load, Joe, and you get these old used tires, that means it's gonna be sketchy, and Ken Huber now looking to get one back on Rafael Russo. It's a great battle here.
Boy, Huber's got his car back underneath him because he's been making some good moves to try and get positions here, as he isn't able to successfully get it, at least this time, down through the first set of corners. But the number 30 working hard on Rafael Russo, falls back a little bit, resets, and sees if he can get him a little later.
Indeed, Huber's gonna just hold back a little bit, but he saw Rafael Russo having a couple of issues going into the corners, actually taking an inside line into the hairpin, which is quite curious. So I'm thinking Huber's just watching him, learning from him, seeing if he can indeed keep that BMW together, or if Russo's gonna make a mistake and he can just jump on it right after.
Stevens and Mies both in pit lane. In fact, Wilson's in, Rubilar's in, Garrido, Rame. I think we might be at the end of the pit window because yet more cars are joining them, slowly trundling down towards their stall. Again, we're looking for Karl Modoff to see if he loses any time in this sequence. He had about a 17-second stop. Mies and Stevens also were very tight together. Stevens is going to come out ahead of Mies, so he doesn't lose the position. And
Modoff goes
is
by
by.
clean.
Yeah.
Yeah, Modoff goes by clean. He's very good indeed, heading into the lead, and he's looking very comfortable for that race win. Jesse Stevens, despite having a little bit quicker pit stop, thanks to the virtue of coming in one lap later, he's still not gonna be anywhere near enough to catch him. But the interesting thing for me, what we speculated earlier on, Rodrigo Mies, we're thinking he's saving fuel. Well, he was able to save no more fuel than Jesse Stevens. So again, they are back in the exact same running order. So I'm wondering, will we see a different Rodrigo Mies? Will we see a more aggressive Rodrigo Mies now that he knows that he can't no longer get the free pass?
Heading back to Espinoza now with his fight. And this is a good one coming down into turn 3. Almost has it. Side by side through 3 and 4. And he's going to be able to get by Payne. The 17 falls back to P14, but he's still close behind as they come down into the hairpin. Doesn't make a move to try and get that one back. Behind them, Mac Miller, Rafael Russo starting to gain time.
Yeah, they are starting to really catch up into that battle. You're looking at Mac Miller, Rafael Russo, and then you see Luis Pime Jr. and David Duino just coming fresh out of the pit lane. So they don't have the heat where they want it yet, even if they don't take new tires. You put fuel into that car, you get used tires in there, you're still standing on the pit lane stationary for 20-30 seconds. That's gonna take the heat out of the tires momentarily, and then you have to get the heat back in the first corner. You're still battling through those tight corners. Only now are they starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with that car under them.
Because Rame is going to get by Garrido, who is very slow in a straight line, and they almost come together into the corner into Sunset Bend. This is where Garrido had his problems before, but he's strong off of it. And what's happening to Rem? He's into the pits again.
He's gonna come to the pit lane. I'm thinking that has to be a penalty, no?
Either a speeding penalty or
Or too
maybe
little fuel.
potentially, or that could be too. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll
Oh,
find out. It depends on how long he stops
fuel,
here.
fuel, because he is coming into the pit lane and he is having to stop here, I reckon, unless he went
No, it doesn't
past the
look like
incident
fuel
limit.
because he's been in there for 10 seconds now. This has got to be some sort of penalty.
Yeah, it could be, could very well be. I'm gonna just see his pit exit lap, see what speed he did here. I'm looking at it right now. The speed limit is 72 kilometers per hour. So he was well under that. No, actually, he accelerated. He came off the limiter, extended his pit stop, accelerated all the way to 90 kph almost. The limit is 72, remember, and then came back to 72. So I'm thinking it's a penalty. It has to be a penalty.
It's got to be. That's the only option that I can think of, but it was a long penalty as we've had a problem with Miller now.
And
Yeah.
Levendick and Hodgson also in battle for P20. So
Yeah.
Jason Hodgson and Ted Levendick getting through 172 and the car number 73. And here we go. Ted getting nice and true for P number 20. So a lot of things happen further back as well.
Yeah, we're watching the replay of Miller. Then we'll go right to that pass there for the 73. This is a single car incident. Just lost it under braking, bumps the wall and gets it going. And if we glance at the number 73, look at that right there. Our director's on it. Down into the hairpin. Just got his nose inside. Textbook maneuver to slip through.
What I really like. And what I really like from Ted Ter, as we are watching Andres Espinosa, David Duino, and Luis Palm Jr., what I really like from Ted Ter is that he left the room on the outside, even if he had the inside line. He left the guy some racing room. He left him a car width and a half on the outside. Didn't capitalize on his exit and was like, look, if you want to keep it side by side, you can keep it side by side. You can trust me. I'm not going to punt you off into the grass. And we should see more of that. You should always leave a space.
I agree. It's the nature of internet racing as we're watching Duino, Espinoza, and Payne. And back to Hodgson, though. We got some nice action because it looks like he's going to try and get a move done on Lowendick. Looks for the over-under, but he's going to swing way wide. Has to hold the car up. Just drifts out, understeers almost into the grass, and eventually it comes back to him.
Nice try for the over-under. Just came in a little bit too hot there. And, you see Ted sliding up in front of him, and he tried to go under. Just couldn't quite get under and came in a little bit too hot there. But it was a nice try.
At the hairpin. Looks like he's lost it on his own, and he in fact is going well down the order. A number of positions go through.
Aggressive on the braking, we see him spin. We saw that happen to a couple of drivers in this race earlier on. Just losing it on the braking. He did a good thing of at least reversing out of the track and waiting for the traffic to go by before rejoining, so that's a good thing. Too often do we see drivers just, being anxious to get back into the traffic and start maneuvering, which is of course the last thing you want to do. Sebastian Vettel, Monza 2019.
Yep. Fred immediately came to mind, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Fred has came back, though, into quite a battle because Miller is right on top of him. I thought LeBlanc was going to get into this, but he's suddenly dropped back among these three. Miller looking for the exit off of Le Mans. And
Yeah,
LeBlanc actually...
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, thank you. He's a lap down. Pardon me.
It's okay. I mean, if your team name is Fluffy Kitten Ninjas, I vote you get your lap back. You get a free lucky dog. Even if it's a lucky kitty, I suppose.
Yeah, I like that. A lucky kitty. Mac Miller backs off down the Ullman straight. Doesn't have the straight line speed that Fredes does. So he gets himself a little bit more safe, but a lot of ground to make up. Considering he started this race in 22nd, he could have had so much more. He's down in 15th after that self-spin.
Yeah, meanwhile, it's getting very close to P number 4. Brandon Wilson, Nicolas Rubilar. P number 4, P number 5. Even if Rubilar's teammate has fallen way back, mostly of his own doing, Nicolas has been quietly having a good race here. And he is hounding down Brandon Wilson last time by. Pretty even lap times for those two guys. So it's a battle going on not only for P number 2, but also P number 4. and a lot of great battles all over the track, even if we come into these last 15 minutes. So, Joe, one eye gonna keep it on Nicolas and Brandon, and the other eye we're gonna keep it on Jesse and Rodrigo because both are very close and both positions could change in a blink of an eye. Oh, Nicolas getting a way better run into Lemo corner, gonna potentially look into it for the last bend, but not quite able to make it. Maybe a little bit too anxious trying to make it work in the last corner. Should have tried to get a better exit and work it on the back straight, but we've seen the straight line speed of that Punto CR Racing BMW, and we know it can make things work in this race. So perhaps we'll see it again.
Certainly some good action between these two. And they've got no pressure from behind. It's about 6 seconds back to Garrido currently. As they come down the front stretch, and you see Garrido back there now coming across the line.
Yeah, and Garrido just gonna, hold a little bit back here. Gonna try and get the car under him, seeing him make a mistake earlier on. And in P number 7, it's a quiet P number 7 car. Remember that Ford GD we were talking about? Fighting with Caleb Lavender, Christian, Sean Romig, and those guys, David Duino. Well, he's now broken away a lot from that battle, has Michael Ambrose. He is in 7th place and he's comfortably in 7th place. He's 5 seconds almost ahead of the car behind.
Don't need to go to it, but Jay Steffi had a self spin in Jean Dembien. Well, we've already gone to it. There we are. So Jay has got it going once more with a little bit of issues here in the final 15 minutes. I'm with you about that half eye thing. I keep looking back to Rubilar because he is putting a lot of pressure on Wilson at this point. And in fact, there is less than a car length between them as they come up to the final portion of the lap. If he can hold on to this by the time they get to Ullman, that's going to be enough for a good slipstream for him.
Yeah, he's very close. Oh, Rubilar spins it. He's around and around and around he goes. Don't run it, don't run it, don't run it. Stop the car. Well, he got out of the track gladly, but don't let it running. Apply the brakes when you spin. When will people learn? And so Rubilar loses his chance, loses a position to his teammate as well, and we jump back to second and third between Jesse T. Stevens and Rodrigo Mies. And I tell you what, only thing faster than these guys around the Sebring today have been not only Carl Modov but also Jay in the director booth.
I take responsibility for that spin that happened. That was certainly commentator's curse, me saying all he has to do is stay with him here. Meanwhile, an aggressive defense down into turn 3 from Stevens. I'm not sure why, because it didn't seem like Mies was close enough to attack.
He doesn't know how Mies battles though. He hasn't seen Mies battling yet, and he's maybe just trying to, make a little bit of room for himself. That BMW seems better under braking, and there's a car spun in front of them. That's Chase Steffi in one of the 4 GDs. They're gonna come back up to him soon, gonna lap him. So we'll see if he gets out of the way nicely. I'm sure he will. Just Stevens still ahead of him, better under braking. Rodrigo's gonna have to make it work better on those fast corners. Those will be his advantage here on Cunningham once again.
Ooh,
and
there
Jay
he
Stevens
goes.
spinning again, so that's one way to avoid.
He's struggling. Something's got to be wrong with that car, Jay Stevens, because that's the third time we've now seen him spin and within the last 2 or 3 minutes. Meanwhile, he does leave these two alone, and as Stevens continues to lead Mies, last time we saw cars this close, the one behind spun, so I'm not going to comment on him needing to keep close this time. Let's just watch and see how they handle this portion of the course. So far, so good. Both nice and tidy. Now on to the Ullman straight where they need to get a launch, and they've separated from one another by a few car lengths. Stevens keeping Rodrigo at arm's length.
Well, Rodrigo Mies just can't put a foot wrong right now. Even I trust him so much at this point. I'm even gonna, just say that blatantly here. But coming into Sunset Bend once again, he's taking that weird little inside line. He's making the corner a little bit more shallow, well, a little bit tighter, I should say, than it needs to be. He maybe can't run the outside line. Maybe there is less wing in his setup. Maybe he's got the car set up so that he just can't come in on the wide line, so he takes the inside line, and that's fine. There are a million ways to take Sunset Bend, and none of them are right. But he's losing a little bit of time there. to Jesse T. Stevens, and that's potentially gonna come into play later on in this race if he needs a run onto the main straight. So right now, I'm thinking his chances are coming into that back straight, take it to the inside, and then use that line he has already used a lot of times before, the inside line in the last corner. That, or he's gonna get a great run out of Cunningham. That's the other chance. Other than that, Rodrigo Mies, he's losing a little bit of time on first sector, so up into hairpin, I'm not thinking it's gonna happen, but we'll have to just wait and see what he comes up with. He can always surprise us. Meanwhile, David Duino, Andres Espinosa, and Luis Baim Jr. are making a bit of a mistake behind him, so it was a three-way battle that turned into a two-way battle at this point in time, show.
Yeah, Espinoza has really been on the attack here for Duino, trying to get into the top 10. Espinoza looking to make up for mistakes of his own during this race. They'll woe it up down into the hairpin. Behind them, Payne giving watch, seeing if there's anything he can do with this if they start tussling. They've got 10 minutes left to go, so the laps are running out. It takes a while to get around this place.
Almost 2 minutes, as a matter of fact.
Oh, Garrido with an issue. He is off. And he comes
Oh.
back on right in front of another car.
Oh,
That
no,
is
no, no.
done
Hold it,
again,
hold
and
it, hold it, hold
spins it. Oh, and he gets another
Oh.
car.
And that's his teammate too. That's Caleb John Lavender out from the 8th place. And so unlucky, Stacey Dunnigan, who is teammate with Caleb John Lavender, both of the GDR cars now taken out. And that is all caused by Diego Garrido coming back onto the track with no care in the world. And that is one of the things you just cannot do as a racing driver. You can't come back up to the track like that. I thought drivers at this level, they would have it imprinted into their spine. You usually learn it by the first time, but Diego, he's been fast in this race, but I tell you what, he still needs to work on a couple of things. I'm not impressed by his performance out here today, and I think the steward's gonna need to take a long and hard look at how this man is driving.
That was one of the slowest unfolding multi-car wrecks that I've seen in a while. It's a bit sad that we've seen so many fall victim to that. Meanwhile, Espinoza dealing with lap traffic at the same time. He's still trying to get by Duino. That was Christie who they just went by. Christie, unfortunately, going to be a bad spot for Payne, who finally gets through. Espinoza holding on to the brakes down here into turn 3, much more into the apex than was Duino. Can he maybe use this? He gets right up underneath the rear wing, and he gets a decent launch as they now take it out of Big Bend and head into the hairpin.
Let's see if Espinosa can make that Ferrari braking work in his favor. Let's see. Espinosa not quite close enough, able to get the car turned in quite well, but Duino, I must say, I'm impressed by the fact how calm he was being there, despite having Espinosa all over his tail. He was taking it calm, using his racing line, taking a good exit and protecting himself into coming into Cunningham, but maybe braking a little bit late into Cunningham for my liking. Again, you see those different lines. You can take Cunningham more aggressively, or you can take a little bit slower and just get yourself a better line as we take it back to the second position, show.
Yeah, Stevens had Mies almost next to him coming down the Ullman Straight as they were going through traffic of their own. Bill Kraus trying to stay out of the way. You can see how much closer that Porsche is to the BMW now. And in fact, he's going to look down in the first corner. A defensive line from Jesse Stevens.
I love
it. Him back.
I love that move from Mies. Feint to the inside, then take the outside, get a better exit, not quite able to make it work, but he tested that. I'm sure he tested that. He tested that to see what Jesse is gonna do. Jesse moved into him, was watching his mirrors, so now he knows. Now Rodrigo knows how Jesse will be driving, and he knows what he needs to do. He gets so much information with that little feint to the inside. I love it.
Certainly pulling some interesting moves as Garrido, with his contact that he had, I think is into pit lane now. And he's already gotten the ire of a few drivers. It looks like some have gotten onto the chat expressing their displeasure with him. Not sure if Garrido's going to be back out.
Yeah, not sure either. He hit Stacy. Stacy was lapped down, so, I mean, it was still inexcusable that he hit him. Stacy was doing nothing wrong there, Stacy Dunnigan. He was just trying to correct the car, trying to get it back under control, and Caleb John Lavender, inside of the top 10, just came around and, had nowhere to go because he sees his teammate all of a sudden just wiggling, trying to get the car under control, and then gets hit and gets put into the wall, and that's him out of the race, and that Stacy do a lot of damage. And I'm not surprised to see Diego in the pit after that one.
Guino's in the wall, and it looks like this might have been a hard hit. He was still working to keep Espinosa behind him, but a little bit of wheel in the grass is all it took. Meanwhile, back to this battle. We got to stay with it. Apologies. It's so close up here. And oh, it's a bad exit from Stevens. Here comes Mies. Last time he's tried to sell him a dummy. Is he going to do it once again? He comes all the way out to the right side. That's the desired line. Shallower entry for Stevens. Could compromise him on the exit. Could we see the over-under here from Mies? He tries for it, still covering off the inside. It's Jesse Stevens trying to deny him any sort of opportunity, slides it into the corner, but holds on to the spot for now.
Now Rodrigo committed to the outside. He tried to make it work, tried to make it as an over-under. He knows that, okay, Jesse can keep the inside line very tight here. You don't necessarily want to commit to the outside before you know the guy can hold his line. Here comes Rodrigo again to the outside, trying to make it work into the hairpin. Let's see if Jesse can hold his line. Well, Jesse slid ahead of him, but he was already ahead. And that little bit of respect we saw earlier on, guys leaving them room instead of sliding ahead of you, well, that's gone. Now they're just gonna, have to commit to it. Let's see if Rodrigo can make anything happen coming into Cunningham. No, he can't. He's just gonna tuck in right behind him instead, and he's gonna have a couple of chances here yet.
All the patience that we saw before from Rodrigo has been thrown out the window. Now it's go time in the final couple laps, and he's pushing the car as well as he's got it sliding around just as much as we see from Stevens. Just an update, Garrido unfortunately is done for the day, as we were curious if it was a penalty for him, and it appears even if it was, he's decided to call it quits for round one. On to the element straight for Stevens, and a not good exit.
Not good at all for his exit. He's slid a little bit wide. That's why I was talking about Le Mans corner potentially being one of the better places for Rodrigo. That's a late move from Jesse, taking a little bit more to the outside, forcing Rodrigo to really take the inside. And Jesse didn't want him on the outside. Let's see the exit. Rodrigo has been worse in Sunset Bend, but he takes a better exit. Right onto the main straight, take Camcho, and Rodrigo is right behind. He's going to have to make it work.
Pulls out to the right side once more. This didn't work last time, but he's deeper on the brakes this time, trying to go the long way around, but he's off in the marbles, and that car just does not grip. He falls back, regroups, looks for the inside of turn 3, covering off right in the middle of the track. Jesse Stevens denies him once more. Where is Modoff in this? He's about 10 seconds ahead, so he is not going to get the white flag next time by. I think we're 2 to go next time at the line.
Yeah, Rodrigo's one of those guys who just wants to find a space. Jesse being really clever here. He knows Rodrigo's potentially not a guy who's just gonna send it in there, so he's comfortable with leaving those 0.9 car widths on the inside, a gap that you can't get by, but a lot of drivers will still take, going up to the inside, squeezing it in. So Jesse getting himself a little bit more room by leaving that room up to the inside, and trusting that Rodrigo will not go into that gap that doesn't quite exist. He's trusting Rodrigo to not do that, so that way he's able to buy himself a little bit more space in the track and forcing Rodrigo a little bit closer to the outside of those corners, and also defending both lines at the same time by keeping that huge BMW right in the middle of the track.
The car that we saw off a little bit earlier, that's the green SRT machine of Kyle Strykars. He got it going once again, thankfully. Still applying a lot of pressure as we ride on board with Mies. Yeah, that was a bit of a moment coming off of Le Mans. They're trying to take your advice and really push that corner maybe a little too hard.
Yeah, Rodrigo just getting his left rear tire right on the grass, half of his tire, and we saw the tiniest of wiggles. And I'm sure at that moment, in the cockpit of Rodrigo Mies, there was a little bit of a tiniest correction, and a maybe tiny bit of something leaking into his underwear there. A sprinkle, so to speak.
He's been seeming pretty gutsy to me, so I think he's got the wherewithal to keep that race suit clean from what I've been watching. Down into turn 3 once more. Just can't quite get the launch off of turn one that he keeps wanting. The sunrise is not leading to sunset for him quite yet. He's only going to have one more lap to do it because we are under the 2-minute mark. They come up to turn 7, and he's continuing to try and get into the head of Stevens as he shows his nose, even though he's nowhere near here into this corner.
Well, it looks like a boxing match here. Maybe round 10, round 11 of a middleweight, lightweight boxing match. Rodrigo Mies is right now on the attack. He's the infighter, trying to chab in, trying to get that room in, trying to get an uppercut in, and he's trying to break the defense of Jesse T. Stevens, but Jesse is giving him nothing. His defense is absolutely perfect. He's allowing those light chaps to maybe land, but he's defending the big blows, and that's what he needs to do at this point in time. And more importantly, he's not allowing Rodrigo to push him into the corner here. Jesse is dictating, even if he's defending, Jesse is dictating the flow and where this fight is going, and he's telling Rodrigo where you can go and where you cannot go. So Rodrigo needs to do something Jesse doesn't expect. Maybe here, this time by Jesse getting a little bit worse exit off onto the back straight, and then into the sunset bend they go.
This time it was Jesse's turn for the bobble, and he goes to the inside to defend Mies, trying to outbreak him the long way around. He's not as good on the binders. Instead, trying to get that over under. He's been able to get himself some speed here onto the front stretch. We've seen it multiple times. None of them have borne fruit. This time it doesn't even.
Come on, Rodrigo. There we go. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Look at that! Down to the inside, but it doesn't quite go there for him. Just a little too shallow in the corner.
I sure hope somebody picks up that phone because I think I called it.
That was incredible stuff. This is the last lap. He has got to make it happen here. Oh, and it's a big slide coming into turn 5 from Mies. He falls back. That could have shot him in the foot.
Yeah, and behind him we got Espinosa having his own battles as well. Andres Espinosa and Luis Pime Jr.
No!
Fighting.
Pame in the wall.
Well, that's gonna be a painful one for him.
Certainly. I was wondering when one of us would get to that pun. He does get the car moving, so he'll be able to take the checkered flag, but he's lost a lot of time from that hard slap into the outside wall. Meanwhile, let's put the cameras on Karl Modhoff. We haven't really shown a whole lot of this guy. He's been holding everybody at bay all race long, and the 948 has come back swinging. He started confidently at the beginning of last season. He didn't come away with the championship, but this time there's no Abner Acosta to be seen to challenge him. And as the 948 comes down the Ullman Straight, I'd say that he has got to be feeling pretty good about this one to make it number 3 this season. It's still early days for Karl. Sometimes he hasn't had great races here at Sebring. This is not one of those. It's been a dominating day for Karl Modhoff as he comes off a sunset bend and to the line victory here in Florida for the 2-time champion.
The crowd in the main straight cheering him on, and no wonder. Hats off for this guy, even if you're gonna risk a sunburn. And in the second place, Jesse T. Stevens being able to get ahead of Rodrigo Mies. The battle kind of dying out, but you can't fault Rodrigo for trying. And I'm thinking that's not the last we see of these two guys battling here this season.
I'm with you on that one. Rubelar, in the meantime, trying to hold on to a top 5 as Michael Ross is playing a lot of pressure. They come around Sunset Bend themselves, and this is a pretty good run by Ross, but not quite there. They come to the line, and Rubelar is going to defend that top 5.
Sean Romy coming home in the 7th place, Andres Espinosa 8th, Rafa Russo 9th, and Ignacio Rodriguez Fredes rounding out your top 10, it seems. Here I'm trying to see if we have Mac Miller, Louis Pime Jr., and Jean-Marc Tremblay in a very close battle. Actually, Tremblay is going to get quite a good run out the last corner. We're going to have to see what he does here. Not quite being able to make it to the line. Oh, but that was very close for P number 12, 13, and 14.
Yeah, that was Pame trying to recover, and it looks like at least he didn't lose that last position. Meanwhile, I believe the battle for 20th is brewing. Looks like Horatio just got past Duhamel. And Duhamel's sliding. He's going to try and catch it. Is he going to run into the car next to him? Justin Ray rarely sneaks through, and that's 2 positions gone for poor Sean.
Yeah, in the last corner, you don't want that happen to you in the last corner of the race. Sean coming really slowly across the line as well. Dave Peterson, his teammate behind him, I'm sure he heard the bad news as well, feeling for his teammate coming home behind him. Dirk Oxas, P number 24, a really quiet race for him, and Kylas Richards, I believe he's already one lap down, so Dirk is the last guy to actually finish on the lead lap.
Yeah, and I think he actually ran out of fuel as he came there. Well, that's going to take us to a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We're going to come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. So stick around and don't miss the awesome post race show we've got coming your way.